Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show.
One.
My guest today is Alison Harris, and she's a self-employed well-being coach. She helps people be at their best through mindset and nutrition, and works both privately and in corporate settings to deliver workshops and talks with passion and integrity. She also provides one-on-one coaching sessions. She says that wellness is close to her heart and has spent many years training, researching, and experiencing health and well-being issues, and has noticed how the changes that she's made to her own life has given her more energy, strength, better physical health, calmness, clarity, purpose, courage, and peace of mind. And you sure can't beat any of those. Now, Alison and I have a lot in common because she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010. Interestingly enough, I was actually, my first case was back in 1987. And then I've had 3 cases again since then, my last one being just recently, really, about 2 years ago. So I'm going through my 4th case, Alison. You were in your late 40s, and I was too. My first one, I think I was 49. I thought I was healthy too, because I worked out all the time and I ate right. And I was very smug about how I took care of myself. And just like you, I was shocked, scared, and devastated. She says her treatment meant 9 months off of work and gave her the time to reflect. And I will tell you that my clients, I was speaking at the time, and I was speaking all over the world. I did a lot of work in England, which is where you are, and I think I've probably been to more places in England than you have. But I ended up doing a lot of over the next many years, because of course it's been a process of 30 some years with this. I also did a lot of webinars, a lot of seminars where I was on stage all day with bandages wrapped around my chest, because I ended up, first of all, getting a single mastectomy, and then I got another mastectomy. So I ended up with a double mastectomy, and then 16 surgeries. So I think it's important that everybody knows Alison is here, I am here, and you can survive all of this. So again, welcome, Alison. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really good, thank you. And the weather here in England at the moment is just gorgeous. So yeah, of course it's 5 o'clock in the evening here. So yeah, I've had a great day.
Well, it finally is a little sunny where I am. I see the boats out of my window. We've had a lot of rain lately. I'm in Florida, I'm in Miami, and we've had a lot of rain. We've had some flooding. But you talk about loving teaching. And I always loved to teach too. As a matter of fact, my doctorate's in education. But I had career schools. My first business was career school. So I was teaching and developing curriculum, and so I guess I have always ended up teaching, even when I work with women, who I coach. What do you love about teaching?
Okay, what do I love? Well, I did it formally for 22 years. I taught childcare and education, so mainly to 16 to 19-year-olds. And I went into that because I'd worked with young children prior to that. So I actually love being around young people. So teenagers, I know for some people it's probably the idea of teaching teenagers is their worst nightmare. For me, I loved it, and I just love their energy. And we always had fun when I was in the classroom. We always had fun. And I just love watching that progression. The course that I taught on for those 22 years was a 2-year program. So I loved seeing the progression. I loved seeing young people grow in confidence and, in maturity. And these are the years when they're finding themselves and who they are. So, and of course I was passionate about what I taught, the subject that I taught, passionate about childcare and education. So being in the classroom was the bit that I really, really loved.
Wow.
Not keen on the other stuff.
Well, it's interesting because I love to teach too, and I think that gets in the way sometimes because they always tell you that you give people too much information and they don't absorb it. You've got to really just give them the highlights. But when you were diagnosed with breast cancer, and you said you were also diagnosed at 49, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Isn't that interesting? And I only went, truthfully, remember, you're going back to 1987. Breast cancer, you didn't talk about it. It was a no-no. But they were doing some mammograms, and it came on the radio, and I was in the car with my husband, and he said, you really ought to go and do that. And I said, why? I'm so healthy. I work out every day, and I eat right, and blah, blah, blah. But he says, I just think you ought to go. And of course, the age was 50, but I was 49.
Yes.
So I went, and boy, was I knocked over with a totem pole when they said, that I had breast cancer. And of course, I won't go through all the things that happened in between there. But, when you are in good health and there is no history in the family, which they have found now that, there doesn't necessarily have to be.
Very little. Yeah.
Yes. That, and the interesting thing is more and more young people are getting breast cancer. So it's either tied to our food, or it's tied to our atmosphere, or it's tied to something. I don't know. But how did you feel, and what did you learn about yourself at that time? Because I was in a surreal position, Alison. I didn't even tell my family. I went and I made appointments with like 3 doctors that you couldn't get into, but I got into them. And I got to the library because this was before computers. And I went to the library, I got books, I read. And then like 2 days after that, at dinner table, I told my family, and they just looked at me like I was, wow, a Martian. So what was your reaction, and how did you handle it?
Well, I mean, if I can just give you a little bit about how I found, just because you shared how you got to know about yours with me. It was a strange thing. Just like you, I was running. I was going to the gym. I thought I'm Superwoman, and I was working full time. I was a mom. I was a partner. I was running a home. All of those things. And I actually discovered a small lump under my left armpit, and I just thought, oh, that's a bit weird. I don't quite know what that's all about. Ignored it for a couple of weeks, and it was still there. So I went to the GP, and she had a look, and she said, do you know what? I don't think it's anything to worry about because of where it is. But she said, I'll give you a breast examination while you're here if you like. So I said, yeah, why not? So she did. And she said, actually, one of your breasts feels slightly different to the other one. I can't feel a lump, but it just feels a bit different. So I'm going to send you anyway for a mammogram and an ultrasound just to see what's going on. So she did. And that's when they discovered I had cancer. Now, the lump was nothing to do with it. The lump was on my left side. And they think that because I was working out, it was a muscle. And that was nothing to do with it at all. But the cancer was on my right breast. And so had I not gone to the GP with this lump that had nothing to do with it, I wouldn't have known, because just like in the States, mammograms start at 50 and I just turned 49. So it would have been at least a year before I'd had a mammogram. So for me, that was my lucky lump, and I still have it now. But anyway, getting back to your question, I, just like you, I was so devastated. I just thought I was super healthy. So it's that feeling suddenly, you feel as if you're in control of your life. And then suddenly you go, and for me anyway, my experience was, the consultant sitting in front of me and saying, right, this is going to happen. You're going to have surgery, you're going to have chemotherapy, you're going to have radiotherapy, and then you're going to be on this drug for so many years and all of that. And it just felt like everything was taken away. My life was suddenly put on hold. And everything that I knew as normal was just turned upside down. And so, yes, just like you, I was scared, I was devastated, I was shocked. Um, but then when the consultant actually said to me, "This is what's going to happen, and it will take around 9 months," and he said to me, "My advice is not to go to work during that time at all because of the job you do and because of the risk of infection." And at that point, when he said this to me, I felt this sense of relief,
Hmm.
which was a strange thing to feel in the middle of all this devastation. I
Yes.
felt a sense of relief. And I thought, well, what's this all about? Why do I feel so relieved at having this pause, if you like, in my life? And for me, my way of dealing with it was then, okay, so I need to find out why me. Just as you said, it wasn't genetic. Less than 10% of breast cancers are genetic. So that wasn't a factor. I just thought there has to be a reason why my body is reacting this way. So for me, it was okay, I'm going to use this 9 months to find out why, or why I believe anyway, this has happened to me. And also, why am I feeling so relieved? And one of the first conclusions that I came to very early on was that I had been chronically stressed for a very long time, and I hadn't realized it. It had sort of crept up on me. And I'd ignored all the signs. You know, it's one of my favorite people is to watch and listen to is Joe Dispenza, meditation and neuro scientist, and he describes chronic stress as driving in the fast lane of a motorway freeway with the foot down on one foot down on the accelerator and the other foot on the brake. And actually, when I heard this, I thought, wow, yeah, that's me. I'm going at 90 miles an hour. I'm ignoring all the warning signs that are flashing on the dashboard saying to me, you're snappy, you're not sleeping well, I was even having heart palpitations and ignoring that. And I was speeding up, I was eating fast, I was talking fast, all of the typical signs of chronic stress. Just didn't realize it had become the norm for me. And so I thought, well, I've got to change this. For me, having been diagnosed with breast cancer was like the red light coming onto the dashboard saying you need to pull over quickly. So the 9 months gave me that time to reflect on my own life and just realize that A, I was exhausted. B, I was really, really stressed, and C, I wasn't handling it very well. Yes, I was in a stressful profession. However, the way I was handling it was not conducive to good health. So
Wow.
I use that time to research and also look at my diet. I thought that my diet was reasonably healthy, but actually, when I looked into it, I thought, no, I can actually do a lot to improve this. So yeah, that 9 months was a bit of a wake up call for me, really.
That's so interesting because I did just the opposite. Because remember what I said, it wasn't really talked about, so I didn't tell anybody I
Yeah.
had it. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a contract with one client, and I was doing 4 to 6 programs a month for them. And I did call my boss, so to speak, the person who had hired me, and said, "This is what I'm going through, but I'm going to be back in 3 weeks." And so uh, she made accommodations for me. And I can tell you, and this is probably, I don't know, but it's just my personality. Allison, I've had 16 surgeries. And after each surgery, I was back in the saddle within 5 days. And
Wow.
I had aches and I had bandages around me and this and that and the other. But I thought, well, I'm going to hurt staying home, so I might as well hurt doing what I love. So I was back on stage, and this went on, 16 surgeries over 30 years,
Mm.
actually. And the last ones, my last diagnosis was recent, but before that was 2004. And that's when I had the other mastectomy. And it was really the worst one. It was the smallest. This is very interesting. It was the smallest cancer, but the biggest surgery. And it left me really, well, you could say deformed. And I had to learn to live with it. And I had reconstruction once, but I didn't have it the second time because it was so bad. There was nothing to construct. And then the one reconstruction I had, the implant burst. And so I still have saline in my body in little lumps. You can see it. And because they couldn't get it all out. So, I mean, I've been through the ringer and back, but I have not let it stop me. And I just keep going because that's my personality. And I spoke to my son yesterday. I said, I did 8 radio shows and I had 2 webinars and then blah, 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 blah. And he said, Mom, you sound great and you love it. So just keep doing it because it keeps you young. So it's interesting, but we all go through that, I think, why me kind of thing. So
Yes.
what were some of the changes that you made to your life as a result of your time out? What did you do in those 9 months?
Well, I guess the first thing I did really was I started to look at food and how I could eat more healthily. And one of the things I decided to do was go much more organic and much more eat more locally produced fruit and vegetables and that kind of thing. That I did a lot of research into how much more nutrients are in organic food to non-organic food. So that was the first thing I did. And I started to do more home cooking. So I had more time, so I could start to do much more of that. So those are the first couple of things I did. I then made a decision, and just the opposite to you, Gayle. I then made the decision that when I went back to work, I would go back part-time. So I'd been a full-time teacher, and full-time teaching, certainly in this country, is you get there for 7 a.m. and you're still marking at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So it's long days. And
so you decided to leave teaching, though, right?
Sorry?
I said you decided to leave teaching.
I did, but not initially. So when I had when I went back to work, I went back to teaching for sort of 3 years, 3.5 years, and so I did that part time, and sort of improve my work-life balance, and which really helped to reduce a lot of the stress for me. But unfortunately, and I don't know whether you had this drug or not, but I was given tamoxifen, which is a drug that reduces the amount of estrogen. Mine was an estrogen positive breast cancer. So this drug reduces estrogen in your body, and it puts you into a menopause. And so over the 3-year period that I was back into teaching, I was becoming much more menopausal, and I was actually struggling to concentrate, and it's a very fast-paced job, and I began to lose my confidence. And I know that I now know, I didn't know then, but I now know that a lot of those things are very symptomatic of the menopause. And so I began to experience the kind of sense of overwhelm yet again, and I wasn't sleeping well. And at this time I recognized the signs. And of course, I just thought, because my belief was that the breast cancer was very much linked to my stress levels and how I was dealing with stress, I just thought, I'm not going there again. I just can't do this. So that was when I decided to leave teaching. And at that time, I also sought the help of a charity in England called the Breast Cancer Haven, And it's an amazing charity, and they provide an awful lot of different complementary therapies to support people, not just going through treatment, but at any time after that. And I saw an amazing nutritional therapist and a herbalist who not only helped me with nutrition and herbal medicine, but also gave me a lot of emotional support too. And they helped me to make the decision that, do you know what? Maybe it's time to leave teaching altogether and to take some time out. I was not in a good place, and also I made the decision to come off the tamoxifen too, and immediately began to feel better.
Well,
And
it's
that's when,
interesting. I think I was on I've been on so many drugs that I can't even remember all the names. What I did, I went through menopause, but I went through it differently. I did not have any of those kinds of things. The only thing I did
uh,
was sweat, and I would be on stage dripping
uh,
water. And when people would come up to me later, to get copies of my book or want me to sign something or want to talk to me, I was dripping. But other than
yeah.
that, I didn't have any, mood swings or anything else. The other thing that
Uh-huh.
some of the medication that I was on did, it made me very stiff. I could tell the difference in my exercise, that I could not do the kinds of things that I had been doing because I just was very stiff. But
Mhm.
so far so good. I mean, I'm now on chemo again, but I'm on pills, and they had me on a very high regimen of these pills, and I ended up in the hospital for 5 days and homebound for 15 because I didn't eat or drink for 5 days. I lost
Oh
20
wow.
pounds. It was amazing. But now I'm on a different regimen, and I'm doing well on that. But it's interesting. We have about 3 minutes left in this particular segment. Um, you also said that you studied NLP, and of
Mm.
course, you did some things that I just never did, Allison. I never have learned to cook, even though I taught cooking in college. Would you believe this? Because
Oh.
I was an acting major, but I needed to do community theater to get teaching, the certificates, but they couldn't afford an acting teacher and a cooking teacher. So they said, could you do both? Well, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was a really good actress. So I would read the instructions on the back of all the things that I would bring to make. And of course, I was working with 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. So I was just putting on a great show. And I remember my mom sticking a fork in and saying, oh, yes, it's done, and things like that. And I got an A in the course, believe it or not. But I think it's a wonderful thing to learn how to cook and make the things that are healthy for you. And certainly, it's part of where you are. And NLP is so important for those listening. That's neuro linguistic programming, to know reactions of people, to know reactions of yourself, to be able to read people, to know what you're doing. And the fact that you studied that, which is
Mm.
interesting after all those years of teaching, that then
Mm.
you decide to do NLP, which I think is amazing in itself. So why did you decide to do that? If you can tell us in 2 minutes or left, because that's all we've got in this segment.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
certainly the nutrition, the nutritional therapist really sort of helped me, and I thought I need to know more about nutrition. So I was studying nutrition, and alongside that, just somebody mentioned NLP to me. I'd never even heard of it, and I think because one of the things for me was why do I find it so difficult to manage stress? And this person said to me, I think NLP would really help you. So I initially did a practitioner course in that, and it just literally, pardon the pun, but it blew my mind. I thought, wow, this is absolutely amazing, and I know this can really help. So I then went on to do the master practitioner and the coaching and the train the trainer courses in NLP as well, because I just love it. And I love that idea that you can literally reprogram your brain, and that the thoughts and beliefs that we have, most of them are in our unconscious minds. They don't always serve us well. And if they don't serve us well, we can find out what they are and we can change them. And I believe that that's really helped me. I was having a lot of unhelpful thoughts, And
Wow.
so, you know, that was driving my stress. And one of my beliefs was I'm not good enough. So, you know, that to me was key in telling me that actually, you know, you're striving for perfection all the time, and driving yourself to do something that's just not possible. And actually, you're good enough as you are.
Well,
So,
that's
you
a big
know,
lesson, Alison. You're good enough as you
absolutely.
are. We're going to come back with Alison. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Alison, find out what she's doing now and how she got into it and so forth. So stick with us.